To all the Gen Zers watching this convention on TikTok right now, I have a message just for you. You don't have to stay poor. You don't have to accept being worse off than your parents. You don't have to feel aimless and unhappy. You don't have to support leaders who lied to you and took advantage of you for your vote. America's future is a series of choices. Our current state of slow motion national decline is a choice. We believe Jesus is king. We believe the inerrancy of Scripture. We can agree on that the most important thing is to win souls for Jesus Christ. And the second most important thing is to make sure we can still do the first thing. Christ called us to be salt and light. We as Christians should change the environment that we come in contact with. That's what salt and light do. So why should we then not care about changing government to be more Christ-like?
You've been doing this on campuses for a while. It's kind of similar to what I do, somewhat from a political standpoint, but we're unafraid to talk about the deeper things, more important things. Talk about that. I mean, that's...
Yeah, sure I will. You know why I like him? Because he hasn't made the mistake of elevating politics over faith in Christ. And what Charlie does in a way that I've come to respect is, because I've been confronted by more and more of this type of issue, is he puts Christ at the center. God is the basis of your worldview. And then because of that, you respect your country. You're very grateful for what our foremothers and forefathers have done in putting this country together. And you want to return it to the Judeo-Christian ethic that was the foundation of this country. So we believe in a personal God who's involved in our lives today.
Where was Jesus born?
Why does that matter?
Well, no, do you know?
Why does it matter?
Okay, yeah, you're obviously not a Christian. You don't know where Jesus was born. He's born in Bethlehem. Okay.
In Judea.
And he was raised in Nazareth, and he walked on the water in Capernaum. What country are those places in right now?
What does it matter?
It does matter. You know why? Because when I went to Israel, I came in contact with the living God that walked on water and rose Lazarus from the dead. When I went to Israel, I saw the Bible come to life. When I went to Israel, I saw Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Sarah, Rebecca, and Leah in the Hall of the Patriarchs. When I went to Israel, what I read as Bible stories popped open. And I said, this is the Word of God. This is real. These are not fairy tales or fables or things that we tell our kids. When I went to Israel, I was able to cry where Jesus cried, where he was betrayed by Judas and arrested, where he rose from the dead and gives us eternal life. I am not an apologist for Israel, but I reject wholeheartedly this narrative. Christians who turn their back on Israel, it says in Genesis and Romans and First Thessalonians, Paul said, you will bless the Jews. If you bless Israel, you will be blessed. If you scorn Israel, you will be scorned. The Israeli government, plenty of suspicious things going on. How do we know the Bible is true? Every day there are archaeological discoveries that confirm the truths of the Bible. In 1 Samuel, in 1 Kings, in 1 Chronicles, there is a diabolical satanic agenda every single day to try and delegitimize the Scriptures. And I will defend the Holy Land, the place that let me see where my Lord and Savior lived. And I will not apologize for that. Thank you very much.
Well, on this anniversary of September 11th, we remember, and we remember where we were, and we remember how much our lives have changed. I think there was a pre-9/11 America and a post-9/11 America, and so much changed in our lives from one day to the next, from how we travel to how we view events in our own country, and a sense of vulnerability that existed on this day, that somehow an enemy halfway around the world could reach us here at home and strike innocent people who simply got up that morning and went to work and then never came back to their families. But the other thing about 9/11 is the incredible American spirit, a sense of unity that reigned in our country and of bravery. We all remember the images of law enforcement and firefighters charging into a building on the verge of collapse, risking and sometimes losing their own lives to try to save the lives of their fellow Americans. As we look back, let us hope that without terrorist attacks, we are always vigilant that these kinds of attacks and that our enemies are out there and that it could happen again, but also inspired by the memory of the sense of unity that reigned in our country, a sense of unity that drove us to make the changes necessary so that a day like that would never happen again. And that is how we remember September 11th of 2001.
Before we begin, let me express the horror and grief so many Americans at the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk have felt. Charlie was a giant of his generation, a champion of liberty, and an inspiration to millions and millions of people. Our prayers are with his wonderful wife, Eric, and his beautiful children. Fantastic people they are. We miss him greatly, yet I have no doubt that Charlie's voice and the courage he put into the hearts of countless people, especially young people, will live on. I'm pleased to announce that I will soon be awarding Charlie Kirk posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The date of the ceremony will be announced, and I can only guarantee you one thing, that we will have a very big crowd. Very, very big.
Our founding fathers here in this country brought about the only true revolution that has ever taken place in man's history. Every other revolution simply exchanged one set of rulers for another set of rulers. But only here did that little band of men so advance beyond their time that the world has never seen their like since evolve the idea that you and I have within ourselves the God-given right and the ability to determine our own destiny. But freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free. Thank you.
Fox News decides Donald Trump is president of the United States. We've got our republic back, folks.
Let's go.
There it is.
Everybody should remember this moment. Look, I'm gonna echo Charlie from earlier. Remember where you were when this happened. Remember where you were when you realized that the Uniparty and all of these, just the establishment, you said it's time to actually participate. And look what you guys have done.
And if anyone deserves to get tears in his eyes, it's Charlie. I think we all agree.
I think Erica was chopping some onions or something in the break room.
No one has worked harder than Charlie for this.
We gotta hear some words here from you, Charlie. You put all this together, my man. Let's hear it.
I am just humbled by God.
It's all God. It's all God. God alone. God alone.
That's all I can say.
Decision desk has it. Pennsylvania.
It's done.
It's beginning.
Realize that Epstein, with his little friend Ghislaine and Ghislaine's father, Robert Maxwell, who was obviously a spy of the Israeli intelligence agencies, that there was something else going on here. Epstein was not some sort of whiz-kid hedge fund manager. Epstein was playing a part. Epstein was a LARPer. Epstein was cast for a specific role, and he played it really well. The sweatpants and the Harvard jacket, the kind of disheveled hair, looking as if he was so smart and above the clouds that he was doing advanced mathematic equations on the back of napkins. But if you actually go into some of the videos of people that met with Epstein at the time, they said he was awfully unimpressive when it came to finance and markets and economics. And it's nothing new that if you're in the intel agencies, you want to try and get as much blackmail on powerful people as possible. Easy, not hard. And this is no longer just speculation. First of all, the evidence that shows that Epstein was a creation of either Mossad, Israeli intelligence, American intelligence, Saudi intelligence, or maybe he was just a hired gun. Maybe he was just the guy that countries would go to and park a couple $100 million and say, hey, can you get one of the members of the royal family with a 13-year-old so we can get them to do what we want to do? Members of Congress are actively being blackmailed. The Epstein playbook is being used on a daily basis. Jeffrey Epstein was not a financier. He was not a hedge fund manager. Jeffrey Epstein was a key player in a multi-decade blackmail operation against the most powerful people on the planet.
All right. God bless you, Patriots. Welcome to Patriot News Broadcasting. You know, some people speculated that that last video there might have played a part in his death for some reason or another. They thought that he feared some of the things that he was talking about. Just wanted to throw that out there. It's good to see you guys tonight. Not doing the usual kind of show. You know, as far as news, there's not a lot in the way of news breaking today, and it felt more imperative to talk about some of this other stuff that's been going on. And, you know, earlier I made this video in regards to the Juan and Nino interview, sort of speculating what my interpretation of it was. And tonight we're kind of going to discuss that a little bit. Gypsy Spirit thinks I'm kind of wrong in my interpretation of all that, and I very well might be. You know, it's hard to say. I've been looking at all this stuff today, and some of it you can sort of answer with ease, and other things, I mean, are questionable. I don't know about all of it. There's things that look weird to me. I still don't understand the dot that went from here to his neck. And so I think we're going to sort of discuss stuff like that tonight, and just see what everyone else thinks. What do you guys think while we are waiting for Gypsy to get to the studio here? A couple minutes earlier, my little intro I drew together was shorter than I thought. I know you've all probably seen all the back and forth today. As far as I know, there's somebody still at large. I did see something about them finding a Mauser 30-06. I seen some pictures from the roof that looked down on where he was. All right, there's Gypsy Spirit. Let's bring her in here.
People that cannot let
Hey there, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, let me turn this off here. I don't know what I'm listening. I'm just going to close everything. Close tabs. Okay, so that should go away, we hope. Oh, that's where it is.
No worries.
Oh, how bizarre. Excuse me. It's like I'm listening to 2 or 3 things, and I don't know why it's still like playing. I close everything.
Sounds like Juan's making the rounds.
Yeah, he's got a new show that he just did with Truth Matters, and that is associated with Tina Peters. So it is a great, cast. It's not only one, but it also has the, kind of a Trennis Evans and then Roseanne Barr. So, it's just a really nice kind of format, and they're talking pretty openly about all of the events of the day, including Charlie Kirk's assassination. We're also going to be talking about that, but it's really important to honor Tina Peters today, which I think it's it's kind of like every other coincidence that has happened. 9/11, which of course we all remember from the events of 2001, which most of us were alive back then and pretty much in shock the day those towers were taken down. And I say that taken down, they weren't, really, this wasn't a natural occurrence. And I wanted to remind people as well that this is the 13th anniversary of Benghazi. And it was the day that Hillary Clinton, kind of came in and, was sitting in the Situation Room, and basically our ambassador there, Stevens, was killed and dragged around. It was really a brutal murder, and we lost 4 SEALs that were there. And the Benghazi dads are something that are going to start coming up again in the news, and that's because it never really has been resolved. So, kind of everything in a nutshell.
It's amazing how many different things there are to look at today, honestly. And I know the stuff with Charlie Kirk sort of overshadowing everything right now.
Well, it's really an event, I suppose, if we look at it as far as navigating the playing field. We really have anticipated something to happen on these days. And Juan actually talked about it in a couple of shows, as far as that he really felt that something good was coming. And we do have something good. Trennis Evans sort of couldn't talk around about Tina Peters, but we've got a lot of legal paperwork, a lot of things hovering. So much that Trump has said on his Truth Social primarily, but it's really pretty exciting that we, as of the day before yesterday, we were anticipating, but we have to look at this as an event that also on the downside was, created, I guess you can say, and the people involved are now trying to, cover their asses, and they're in a situation where they've appeared on some of the networks, and there is a measure of time that has to pass before we really start to get the truth. And that's the sad part, is we have to mourn our dead first and understand that these were not the climate that we're undergoing right now in this country is one of, retribution. And that is on our side, that is led by President Trump. And his attitude at this point in time is, pedal to the metal, full steam ahead. We're going to get this thing right side up. And we're going to have to understand we're at war, and that the real issues here are things that I kind of put in perspective by saying that, we haven't had a real war that was on in our country for quite a long period of time. And all we've had is kind of civil unrest. And this has been the way of the dark forces, or the black hats, is that they make it seem all normal that we're at constant agitation level. And it's interesting because this program that I will have up later this evening with Trennis and Roseanne and Juan, they talk about that. They talk about how much of our lives have been controlled, and the aspects of control that we've accepted, and how it is that President Trump, who has worked constantly, and I'm telling you for a fact that he never really stopped working for us, even for the 4 years he was out of office. And he was planning and he was doing research. And now we're at the point in time where we've got the team together, which includes all of us, really. We're all doing something to help out and something to do, even if it's just locally, even if it's just on the internet. We're all capable of following a urging that we're getting from God above. And in my life, it has happened really consistently for a very long time. So that's where I kind of go with this, is that we need to look at Charlie Kirk, not only in terms of the works that he did, but also the amount of people he actually affected, all those, colleges he attended, all the events, the turning point, which coincidentally was something that was said on air, by Juan just the other day. And here we have it at a actual college event that he was going to be talking to, and he solicited for people that were actually kind of not on our side. He wants to talk with them. He wants to engage them in discussion, and particularly the youth. He had a huge effect, and he has a huge, following now on a lot of social media. I mean, to the
Yeah.
tune of millions of people, right?
Yeah, he had like 4 million, I think, here on YouTube. He did have a
Insane.
huge impact and changed a lot of minds. Do you think, that I kind of read the situation wrong the other day? I mean, I felt like Juan and Nino were sort of hinting towards this. They were hinting towards something this week. And I know there was the 5-5 and the 9-10 cards and stuff. Do you think I'm reading it wrong, or it's just the wrong time?
Well, there's interpretations, and everybody, saw that card game where Juan was talking at the same time he was trying to manage this card game, because it wasn't really like a regular card game. It was completely contrived. So let me start with that. Because of the fact that it's the other card player was Jennifer, and she was just dealing the cards like somebody who had never handled cards before. So, but what we had at the end of the day was what I consider a sort of what would I say? It just was a calm. Okay. So Juan has worked in this field for his whole life, and he's well versed in terms of having the ability to give people these ideas, right? And what we draw that from really is the Q team. And since a lot of us did go back to the days of Q, and we did read all the drops, and we got pretty excited about it, because they were, a big group of people, the digital warriors, that actually came together on first 4chan, then 8chan, and then 8kun. We talked about these things. We talked about the potential. We also did research, very deep research. And then we fed it all into a system of computers at that point in time, and we're talking, 10 years ago almost. And it did start before Q actually became out there. So this is Q military. This is Q clearance. So all of this is connected. And so we come to the card game and we say, what were we shown? You know, what kind of comms were we shown sitting at that table? Well, the first thing was, and this, I like to think about this, is that it was with Nino. So Nino was kind of, you know, he was throwing out these ideas and he kept saying, well, I know what you're talking about, but I can't say it, right? So
Right.
he was playing what we usually call the stooge, right? So I know a lot about playing cards strictly because I worked on a film many years ago called House of Games. And if you ever have a chance to see it, it was directed by David Mamet, who actually was a director in theater in New York for many years. And he brought together a cast, and the whole thing was about the House of Games, which I highlight, was about the real thing that a lot of men did, and even women, they pulled women into it, which was the con. You know, it was con means confidence. And so what they would do is they would pull somebody into their confidence, and then they would tell them that if they did a certain thing and put down a certain amount of money, that they would win on a poker table. Now, this is 5-card stud, and you're talking about a game that's very much a property of what is strategy, right? So, and what you're doing is you're reading the other people, and you're thinking, are they holding, or are they going to have a lot of money and have good cards, you know, so that they're really expressing the the gist of what they're doing. And this all has, you know, technology that goes back to, I mean, they've had con people at the craps table in, you know, Las Vegas. I mean, that can pull off doing some things that are pretty amazing. So we've got Juan sitting there, and he ends up playing 5 cards, and it's a 9 and an ace, and I guess the other card was it's 9-1-1. So aces are ones, and then there's a 9 and I guess 2 aces. So, and then it's 5 and a 5. So
Right.
so those are the indicators of what kind of the winning hand is, because that's a winning hand, 2 aces and 2 5s, 2 pair, right? So what he did is he created the winning hand to be, and what we're talking about is like today, 9/11. Well, was 9/11 a winning day? And he talks about this in this new show, and I just listened to it, so I'm kind of fresh. But 9/11 can be the best of the best, or it can be a catastrophe. 9/11 was, as he has talked about before, the birth date of Christ. 9/11, and that was 3 BC, three years before the commonly thought of birth of Christ, 0. Okay, so the difference is a period of time that goes from between the two dating systems, you know. So, but we kind of have that as a baseline. So what's the 55? A lot of people have interpreted it as 5 by 5, which means all is clear and understood. So that's not a bad com. But I did some research and I came up, and I should read it because it's a very significant Q drop. So let me get back into my computer here, because I put all this up on my Mainstay channel, and if everybody were to have access to this, they could go see it for themselves. And it is, 107, 107 on Telegram. And then I'm on also X, which is really where I put most of this stuff. And amazingly enough, I've got a good bunch of people that are on X and are actually contributing to this. And so some of them are anons, you know. I'm just really pleased as far as being able to be given the authority to post in Juan's name. And he has said this on air, so everybody should know I'm totally legit. I've been working with him since 2019. So this is a great format because you can pin things, and then you can also highlight stuff, and you can go down and create a thread, so, and this happens to be the top thread, and I don't know if you can put this up, but the pinned message is, "This is the steely stare of a man who has had enough. Praise God daily for President Trump and his family. Today has been tough for those at the forefront." And also, it is a terminology that has been used many times, which is the point of the spear, the spear, SPEAR. So we must soldier on despite the hurdles that Satan puts in our way. Focus on the task ahead. No one is above the other. And that's from the Q team. So it is a 3 minute and 20, no, it's actually longer than that. 4:03, 4 minutes and 3 seconds. And it is titled "To My Great Fellow Americans." Okay, so I put that up just about a day ago. And that was when it was posted. So on X. And he has been posting most of his stuff on Truth Social. So there's a good reason to go over there too if you want to do social media. It's, in my opinion, it's not nearly as able as the X platform. So
Right.
so the thing about this is I kind of went in at one point in time, and somebody said, "Did he just say my fellow Americans?" And I went, so I responded, "The storm is upon us." So I've gotten quite a
Yeah,
few
there
views.
were people trying to say the video was AI, and there's been so many rumors going around about the Charlie Kirk stuff.
Well, yeah, that's separate from this thread. So we'll talk about Charlie in a second in terms of all the kind of stuff that's been going on. So,
Right.
but on this thread, the highlight is that it is a Q-Drop 55. So, and that happens to be pretty important because that is exactly what it says. And it says Q-Drop 55, it was November 2nd, 2017, which was during President Trump's, first term. And it says, "Look to Twitter," which X is former Twitter, right? And it says exactly this: "My fellow Americans, the storm is upon us, ... like 7 dots, and then God bless." And then I put a picture up there with the cards. So if I were to say as an anon, that's what that hand is. Now, what is the losing hand? What is the crap hand, as one put it? It is J, 322J. So if I'm going to look at that, it's pretty simple for me. 322 is a code for Skull and Bones. And so Skull and Bones is an association that came out of Yale, and that it was created, and I did a decode on it and everything in another thread, but it has a cast of characters in it that have been significant in terms of taking apart this country, and I'll just leave it at that. It's pretty easy to research. You can go to Wiki or just to AI, to look at it. So that is my interpretation of it, because what is he saying? He's saying that these are the cards that we have, which is the Q team, and we have this date, which is today, and that all what they've got left are jokers or jacks. You can kind of interchange those two, although jokers are typically another card, but it's a J. And then the skull and bones are the ones that are for crap, right? So
Right.
I think that was the calm. There was also some other things he looked at, and he looked at the coin, the silver coin, and then he also talked about the fat lady singing, which is in the back, and
The
that kind of,
Department of I kept seeing the Department of Justice patch. He kept
yes, and
showing
that's
that.
on the shirt. Yep. And that, of course, is reminiscent. Again, we go back to what has happened with Pam Bondi, and she has actually been activated, if you want to put it that way, on several projects that actually have to do with the states. And that's where we get into, again, Colorado, Tina Peters, locked up for basically doing her job. And when we go into that sort of thing and look at the comms again, we're going to discover that she was tried by a crooked court, a kangaroo court, as it's been called, which basically didn't hear half the evidence and then gave her a sentence that was, long. I mean, 9 years for criminy sakes for doing something that basically was her job, right? So that kind of fits in there because Trump has had several things, and I quote that on that show I just sent you, that is, really primary to how this went down, which was, and I do have the link that is Tina's case sends a chilling message. Even those who serve with integrity can be silenced. As she sits in prison this day, her 70th birthday, all of us should pray for her release and bond so her case can be formally dismissed on appeal. That's the big issue. They wanted her to take a plea deal, but she said, no way. I mean, I'm going to get this dismissed. I've got the facts on my side. I'm not going to take it. So she had no prior crimes, not a one, not even a parking ticket, as Juan said. And the way the judge acted at her sentencing is nothing less than skullduggery. And this was a post that August 21st, 2025, which was the day that she had her first appeal come up. And it was from Donald Trump on Truth Social. Free Tina Peters, a brave and innocent patriot who has been tortured by crooked Colorado politicians, including the big mail-in ballot support, the governor of the state. Let Tina Peters out right now. She did nothing wrong except catching the Democrats cheat in the election. She's an old woman, very sick, and if she's not released, I'm going to take harsh measures. So this was last August.
I'm curious about something. I'm having Mark Cook on Sunday. Did they try and prosecute him? Do you know?
Mark?
Yeah, for
I don't know everything. He'll have to tell you because I only know that he is with the coalition of candidates, I should say it correctly, and that he has been working closely with Matt Meck, who is they call him the anyway, Matt is the chief of staff that Juan appointed because Juan's he's been on this since 2020, right? This Canada's coalition. And they've gotten to the point now where it's really become the states matter, and this has to be the way that it works because we are a republic. I just want to make sure everybody understands this. If we're going to be a republic, we have to let the states handle their own business. This is the way it works in terms of everything that we know, even the way that we set up what they call gerrymandering in the states, which of course Trump advocated for and now is actually coming true in several states. Now, that the Democrats had a hold on this country for 4 years and could basically manipulate that by bringing in all these illegals. So what was the first thing up that, Trump took care of in his new term? He let the J6ers out because they had all been framed, and of course them taking a pardon was they were willing. They'd been sitting in jail. A lot of them starved and couldn't trim their toenails. And, it was awful. what they were subjecting them to, like criminals. And,
Right.
you know, the way we know now that it went down, it was about agent provocateurs, and that the FBI was involved. And see, so we're moving through that. And there's a lot of indictments that are out there. There's grand juries that have been convened. And if you all have been following one, you would know that as of the second week in September, we start to bring in some of these players that are very high, impact. And the last one in October, which is like the third week of October, is Hillary Clinton. So they're not just going to ask her out to tea. This is about grilling her about what she knew about primarily, which is going back to Benghazi, because that was, 13 years ago today. So that all comes up in highlights, but it
I
also has to
know
do with what she did during, the Obama, um, you know, 8 years there. So
I know a lot of people talk about seeing public arrests around that time. What do you think the likelihood of that is?
well, everybody kind of needs to know the process. And this is where, I had it explained to me once, excuse me, with by Juan, because I was working in a very interesting position. I was a reporter, and I got kind of into the situation where I got a press pass, and I actually went to a tribal ceremony that they had that Bill Barr was there. And I know there's a lot of people think Bill is nice or is not a good guy, and he does have some shady past, and he did turn on Trump, but sometimes I think this is all theater. I think this is all,
Right.
staged. But when I met him and when he signed off on the EO that created that the tribes had to sign on to because they were affected by it, 11 states worth of tribes. This was many, many thousands of people. That they were, with the federal government, then allowed to come in to the tribal grounds and to do three things, basically. There was more there, but the three basics were that they could bring in their FBI to do research on the missing and murdered indigenous women that were, they were missing in droves, right? Which was very scary. And I worked a lot in my state with breaking the backs of these. I can't even call them real people, but they're traffickers, and that's what they get their money from, and that's what they facilitate for basically the deep state. So, this city, this state was affected. Utah was affected. Arizona was affected, and then Washington, Oregon, and California, and Alaska. And then there were some tribes in New Mexico that were also a part of this. So how many are we up to? Anyway, so it ended up being 11 states, and that then they could get into the tribal grounds. And of course, they have to be asked to bring the FBI, but the FBI could investigate. So that was a big deal. And then, of course, what they wanted was access during the voting process. And this was really huge because I had reported in 2018 in my state, again, how they actually pulled off a incredible absentee ballot scam. Okay. And this had to do with the tribes because they sat, and I heard this from a woman who was tribal. Okay. So this is a direct story. They were taking boxes of ballots. There were absentee ballots, you know how you take them out and they have to be double sealed and signed and everything.
Right.
They were pre-filling them out. They had them printed, and now we know that a lot of them were printed in China because they were coming across Canada and then being transferred into my state, and they were all watermarked. As far as they weren't watermarked with R marks. They were not marked because they were coming in pre-printed from China. So all they did was sit down, at a big table. They'd have all the, tribal people that would come in, and they would, dole out these signed absent or these pre-printed absentee ballots, and they would have people sign, and they would just sit there all night and then sign off on this stuff. Then they gathered it up again and they put it into boxes. It looked kind of official, and because it was a whole lot of counties and a whole lot of tribal grounds that were affected by this, and it was a whole lot of states other than just Montana too.
Right.
So they would put them in the process, and on election day 2018, my senator happened to be up for re-election, and this guy had a long list of grievances between, what is the Republican, what the people were that were in the state, he had gotten away with a lot of stuff. He'd already frauded 2 elections, one of them by paying tribal members $35 with checks that were signed by the DNC. And then the other aspect of this was that they had people that were in there that were actually fraudulating the vote by going in and going for and voting several times. So there was, and then they also created a thing called ballot harvesting, which was these, again, they're DNC operatives along with all the lefty liberal associations. They would send them out to sit on the tribal grounds, and they would have them not only sign up like for being registered to vote, but they would also be given a ballot, then they would take it back. So in this state, we ended up with 10,000 of them. And overnight, all the machines stopped working. And at that point in time, the Republican had gotten ahead of the Democrats. So they knew it, but that was a different era than the way that it was done like in 2020.
Right.
So they slipped them into the process, fed them through the machines, which had not broken, but that's what they said. And then, of course, in the morning it came out, the difference was exactly around 10,000 votes. They just ran them all through. So, because, I cataloged all that, and then he, won the election and nobody questioned it. And except for a few of us that kind of went, no way. So I crunched all the numbers after that. And there were actually more people that voted than were registered to start with. And then in some native counties, there was more people than lived in them that, So again, were sloppy. And this is where we are today and in 2020, when that happened, and the hockey stick, that everybody talked about, where all of a sudden, you go from one candidate to the other in like a vertical.
There's some
and that's
stories about ballot harvesting out of Houston, I believe, from 2020, people getting arrested. But,
yeah,
it doesn't get in the news. I look for these stories and they bury them if they even have them at all.
Well, the thing is it's been really hard to catch these, I mean, the people that actually perpetrate the crime. And hey, Dinesh D'Souza did a whole movie about it, 2000 Mules, right? And he had it dead to rights that, here's the people that were hired, here's the mail-in boxes that they were dumping things into in the middle of the night, 100 ballots, and then they got a check, per ballot, I mean, it's like, okay, well, isn't that kind of like against the law? Well, it is, but we have a lot of illegal behavior that's happened, right? Not just one thing.
Do you think, I suppose, you had mentioned the Point of Insurrection Act. Do you think we're getting to a point where that'll probably come with some type of arrest once legal all legal possibilities are exhausted, or
Well, the Insurrection Act was first done. It was a law that was passed, I think, in 1832, and the first time we really saw it was during the Civil War, where it was enacted by Lincoln, and he did it because there was civil unrest, civil insurrection. I mean, it had to do with the basic concept of that we have to stay a consistent country as far as law and order, and I really think that that's what we're headed to, because that then moves everything into federal control. So no matter what state you're living in, you're going to get affected by it. We already have seen the National Guard sent out to these cities, and I don't know if you've seen it, but it's right there in Chicago, and LA, who had been fighting this tooth and nail. And of course, they're as corrupt as hell, because actually California, from what I've heard, is a red state, but they had to fraud it. I mean, they had to work it in 2020 in order to keep their state senators and Congress people in the blue.
do you think
Because
sort of sending the National Guard out to these big cities, do you think that's cleaning up what he can before that point comes?
Well, I think that part of this strategy, and it's very important to kind of look at it as like across the country, he's trying to take apart the cities that have sanctuary cities in them, because they're the ones that are all the trouble. We have actually gotten authorization, and the Supreme Court is acting on our behalf. I mean, they're not giving validity to these actions that have come in front of them about the illegals. So I think we've got the high road on that, and that's, boy, I'll tell you, that see, in terms of what they did in New York, what they did in let's see, where else have they been? In Maryland. They were in they've really gone to town. Yeah. ICE, this is about ICE, and this is one of those things that, I mean, they've got to have a strong presence in these towns in order to get down. Again, we're talking about boots on the ground that actually are there to witness these crimes, and then they can take them in. And of course, the whole deportation program, which, DOJ, and they're all, they're sitting at the table together and talking how they can get this country right side up. And but we have to be targeted, and that is going to take time, to really clean this out. So
Yeah. I've been paying a lot of attention to the Israel-Gaza situation, especially after the interview I did with Juan, and there's really this huge war on Christianity that's gone swept under the rug, sort of.
yeah, I think that's a real factor. And you don't have to look any further than really this country. I don't like to sort of get into this Israel Gaza thing, because there's so many people absolutely on fire that, yeah, I understand it, guys. Gaza shouldn't be leveled. There's a lot of kids there, but in the bigger scheme of things, that will become important at some point, but it's not now. I mean, we've got to get our country under control. We've got to be in a place where everybody is kind of up to speed in terms of why we're doing stuff. And also, in that very real way, we're a Christian country, and It's like this guy that's Muslim that's running for what, the mayor in New York City. I mean,
Right.
good grief. He's going to solicit Sharia law. I mean, shouldn't people be concerned about that? It's like,
I
that's kind
would
of,
be. These cities that are blaring the Muslim prayers over the loudspeakers every morning. That's pretty
yeah.
wild.
Well, and that is not what I would say is going to sit well with most Christians, I mean, but they came in, I invoke this entire last few years, but the squad, right? That was,
All right.
four women that got together, and they were all Muslim based, and one of them, Ilmar, whatever her name was, she was actually married to her brother, so that they could immigrate. Again, it's just wacky shit, and I personally have just a, excuse me, I'm not going to be a part of that shit. But they did infiltrate during the Obama administration to the point where they actually took over a county in, I think it was Michigan, that basically wasn't too far from Detroit, but you look at the people there, and they're, are they interested in politics? I think they just didn't really care.
That's what I had read too, and that around that time in '08, when Obama came in, they took a heavy influence in our media, which ties back into what Netanyahu was saying about not believing everything you're seeing about the Gaza situation on the media.
Well, and I mean, I can tell you from my viewpoint that, and it's sad, I mean, it always looks horrible, and trying to tell people that this is like even a possibility kind of gets me in trouble sometimes, but there's actually a lot of fabrication in this. I mean, you know, they have killed children, but a lot of times they're killed by their own people, and then they're carried around looking limp and bloody, and then they're just making it up, and I feel horrible for this kind of thing because it's true. How can you look at that as really happening if they're fabricating it? They actually have, and I've got them dead to rights. This happened many years ago, where they were purchasing baby dolls from this country, from somebody I knew that actually had a mold that he was making these babies. They were, 6 months, 8 months old, small, but he could fabricate them in silicon, and he would, pre-dye the silicon so that it looked, skin-like. And if you looked at him close, I mean, you'd go like, that's like a puppet, right? But you could carry it and it would flop very realistically as a baby does. So, and I've seen some of the films of that where they have buckets of blood they carry, blood packets and shit. A lot of it's fake,
The media is
And
it's a huge part of this war. It's enormous part of this war, really. The control they have on society.
well, this is again, we have to go back into history because the whole Israeli thing it's got like three dynamics, and this is just where I'm going to leave it because getting into this is like going down a road of like, okay, how much do you want to know and how much time do you have? But there's the Zionist and there's the Rothschilds, the Jews. And then there's the Khazars. The Khazars they're in there. They're the fake Jews. They're the ones that are up in the Ukraine making a big mess. And amazingly enough, I mean, I was told by Juan not to mention it in this way, but a lot of those fake Jews actually have a bunch of swastikas on them, which seems like an odd juxtaposition, but
right.
There's another kind of element to that, of course, with the Russians, because the Russians know all this. I mean, they've been dealing with it right next door for 10 years now. And, when this whole thing came up with Zelensky, who was like a stripper and a dancer and, I mean, he's a fake. He's an actor. I mean, it sent them over the edge, and they've had it. They've had enough, and right now they're actually revenging their soldiers that have been in there, because this dynamic goes to the deep state, where deep state's been funding Ukraine. And who is the deep state? The deep state is the Rothschilds. Okay, we can say that, with big money, but they're Jews from New York,
And you think those attacks that we've seen lately, I mean, are probably false flags, right? I mean, Poland,
Yeah.
Lithuania.
Well, we're talking dynamics that are different in the Mideast than they are basically this whole Ukraine, Israel thing, because the Mideast is so complex. I mean, you're thinking Syria and Libya, where Benghazi took place, right? And
Right.
you try to figure this out, and I only know about Benghazi and Libya because of the Benghazi dads, and amazingly enough, Kurt Weldon, who is actually like involved in that all stuff. He was a senator at the time, and Juan has been talking about him recently. So Kurt Weldon was a player back who actually was trying to defeat these forces that came in and killed Stevens and then the Navy SEALs. And of course, there's also this other element.
Did any of
that
those
I
Navy SEALs survive from SEAL Team?
They lost 4 of them. The rest of them, I think there were 13, and some of them actually got into a safe house that was like a ways away. But the 4 guys that were killed they were brutally murdered, and they stayed to defend the safe house, and then they discovered that the safe house had been taken. So it's like they were screwed from the beginning, and it just was a hit to defer and to put into the news cycle something that would take away interest in what Obama was doing, which had to do with the pallets of cash. And this is what Juan has started to really dig into, because we've got all this information, and I think you've shown the show where he talks about the $100 million on 33,400 pallets, and that's a shit ton of money. And it's not just in American dollars; it's also in marks, and it's in euros. It's all over the world. And what were they going to do with this money? It's like the big question is, what rules this world, and why? So, and this, of course, is why President Trump, he's such a genius, because that's what he has done. He is a big money individual that understands banking. He understands power. He understands, in a way, the art of the deal. We are damn lucky to have him, and pray every day that man is not attacked. I mean, they got Charlie Kirk yesterday, and how that happened is, I very much would point to the politics in Utah. So, and we're finding out more and more about that as the hours go by. So, yeah, I just have to be more pointed, I guess, in terms of being able to set up this dynamic so people can really do their own research, because it's not clear. It's not simple. It isn't just one set of sort of facts. You have a whole bunch of stuff that they've worked tirelessly, and I put this at the feet of Satan, that he wants to get you off track. He wants to end your search. And that really is why they killed Charlie Kirk. And he died because
I heard all kinds of interesting theories. Some kind of got into the realm of the energy surrounding the date. This might sort of be up your alley, but You know, um, like trying to create more negative energy or defer away from. Oh, I'm trying to think how I read it. I'm not sure how to explain it honestly.
Well, it definitely takes over the news cycle. I mean, the big thing about all of this, and this is what's come out over the last 24 hours, really, and Juan sent me some stuff too that was, and I still have yet to kind of sort of search through it and find the exact right clip. But, right after this event happened, Speaker Johnson took to the um, to the Capitol, and he asked for a couple minutes of silence for Charlie Kirk, and the left went crazy. They started screaming, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to disrupt this, so nobody." And it's like, he kept putting the gavel down and going, "Order in the Senate," or, and it's just insane. It's absolutely. They have reached a point where it's just like Juan says about hell. There's no reason or logic. And when you stop being able to communicate and all you do is scream and yell, and make trouble, and you're supposed to be a sitting senator or congressperson,
And at the common decency
going
of
on.
somebody that's just been executed in front of an audience,
Well, it's true. I mean, it's the exposure that they're getting by our process of revealing them, um, is setting them off. And I think I've heard probably a dozen times over the last 24 hours again that we don't care anymore. We'll trigger them all we want to because they're revealing themselves. We're coming to the point where it's not going to be easy for them to hide, and that is really the earmark of the times we're in. Is we've got to allow them, we're at the brink, and it's just time for all of this to be revealed. And you look at certain movies maybe that kind of trigger that feeling, but Some of All Fears is one that Juan has highlighted many times, where you get the finality of things is that you just end up killing them all. And that's a tough way to say, because we don't want to be lawless. We have to go down this road of following the law. And I mean, President Trump is demanding it. He does not want to be seen as lawless. And, to even sort of suggest that is flies in the face of really what even God wants us to do. He wants us to maintain and to be given the peace that comes with his grace. And that is a very big thing to do right now. Everybody look at it very seriously. And Juan did make a suggestion, and it's that you read Proverbs, and I did put that up just on my Telegram page as Proverbs 11, and it's really amazing because these things actually sort of like, boy, that sounds like it's today. So I'll let you read it by yourself. I could read it through, but
it gives you that small connection to, to God. And I think it's a good thing to do, really.
Absolutely. I think that it's required right now, and for me personally, I spend a lot of time, and I use it's kind of a meditative state where I go into what's called flow state, which is really where you calm your mind down and you just flow. And I see in chat a lot of people are talking about horses, and I have horses, and I really love horses, and they're probably the best thing that anybody could be close to. Having ownership is expensive, and I understand, but there's there's places to go to get in contact with them because they are the most grounded, centered, flow, kind of species that ever existed. You don't have to ride them to get their energy. And I a lot of times I'll go out and I, do what Buck Brannaman said. He says, that the outside of a horse is good for an inside of a man. And what that means is that you just get out your curry comb and your brush and your fly spray or whatever, and you just center on that moment. And there just isn't anything more profound. I think people with dogs have those moments. I think people with cats do. Cats are really nice because they purr in a frequency that's healing. So,
Right.
there's something that's really kind of cool. 120 to 220 hertz. And boy, I'll tell you, I got a big purr cat. I got a Maine Coon, and he's got a big purr. So, if he's happy, everybody knows it. So, but they also are very sensitive, and this is where we are right now. Focusing on the things that bring you peace and bring you grace, because in essence, we really don't have to be involved in stuff at this point. We can find out about it, but how exactly Charlie Kirk died and watching slow motion films of bullets hitting him, I don't think that's healthy,
It's really not. And it felt how low class. I can't remember the word I used earlier. It doesn't feel right. It just, I don't know. I
It's
know
just, you're
people.
right. It doesn't feel right. That's all it has to be. Be simple, Jack. I mean, I think we're okay with that. Okay, so I do stuff that's really but I've done it my whole life, and for me, that's kind of fun. Is analyzing things and thinking of facts and history, and I can calculate and I can do all sorts of things. But in my mind, so I have, because I've trained it to do these things. But if I want to go flow, let me tell you, it's all. I mean, I'm in that bubble. Nobody can get in there, and it's not. It really, nobody has to feel bad about just sort of doing for themselves right now. I mean, there are things that you can do for other people, for kids, for elderly. You can just go in and do little chores. You can do handicrafts that help people out. Go to your local market. Grow food. I mean, have a few chickens. That's actually more important than people think. And
Even just staying positive, really, and spreading
that's
your
right.
positive energy is all it takes sometimes.
Yeah, it's kind of a it's again going back to a state of mind that we used to say in the Q team is called future proves past. And of course, if you're going to do things that way, you're going to have to live more like they did in maybe the 50s or 60s or 70s. Choose your era and spend some time with it. Play the music and just dance and go for it, because it's not going to teach you anything to get agitated and upset about current events. I mean, we have to mourn for Charlie. I think he was taken too soon, and that hurts because he was performing a very, very important aspect, which is he was going to the colleges and talking to young people that were just getting started in their college careers, and maybe they were in mathematics or they were in medicine. It didn't matter, because we all care about some basic human conditions, and they have been force fed by the mainstream media a bunch of shit that doesn't make sense. And
Yeah.
for my attitude, I mean, that's they're enemy number one.
It's just like we were growing up. Yeah, Charlie connected with them in a way that no one else really could for that age group.
Yeah, I mean, he was using a thing that is it's an intellectual sport called debate. And it's
Right?
like, what happened to
You don't
debate
even have
in
to
this
call it
world?
that, right? It's just a conversation.
And that really, it is, I mean, it's just, and there's several things more and more coming across, and I'm going to post one that I just found not too long ago that is just him talking to a girl that comes up. She's 13 years old, and she asked him a question like, what would you suggest that I do, to bring about a higher range of, abilities in terms of, my schoolwork and things like that. So he answers and says, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here today. It's so great that you asked this question because he had a suggestion that just is like, it works for everything, And it was a good clip. And I think I'll put that up on Wanna Stop in Presentations because that's what we need to see. We need to see the positivity behind Charlie and his life. And also, I hope it inspires other people to do this. They were maybe able to target him because in Utah, there's just a horrid war going on in the political realm. And um, I can tell you it's not pretty. And I have friends that are down there that they were the first ones to call and tell me that he had been shot.
Do you think there's any chance of catching who did it at this point?
Well, the thing about this is I have no doubt that basically Utah at this point in time they have sent the big guns down there. I mean, we're talking the top investigators, top intelligence, top FBI, and I'm sure Cash himself will end up over there because they've got to find out. And I think that that is because, and they know it. See, they're now like they pulled the trigger and they're going to get in deep shit about this because it's going to unravel the entire election scam that these people have been pulling out of their asses now for 8 years, And it's the same deal in Colorado. When they let Tina out, I'll tell you that is going to flip a switch that doesn't just affect Colorado, by the way, but that is a state, and I don't know if any of you are from Colorado, but it's going to be a purge because the governor's involved. All of the people that are in the state senate, except for one guy named Scott Bottoms, and you better get on his side. He's running against the governor who is a Jew, and he's a homosexual. Okay, so
I feel like Illinois is just as bad, honestly.
well, I'm sure it is, but you're sort of haven't had any assassination attempts yet. But and there is, I mean, there's a thing about all of this that it's like in Utah, it's about the rhinos, literally. These are people that are supposed to be on our side, but they've been pulling off this scam for a long time.
Is this home of why can't
Romney?
I think of it? Yeah, Mitt Romney.
Yep. You know who he's a part of. This is the Mormons. So
right.
So and I'll tell you, they were on the list, and I'm sorry for any Mormons that are here. And I know some good Mormons, so don't get mad at me, but the Mormon religion has been needing a cleaning house for a while. Utah is the biggest center for multi-level marketing. They have had more scams over the years that have cost people billions of dollars because the Mormon church was running them. They were getting kickbacks from all this. And
these the mega church scams sort of that they've been talking about lately, or
No, the Mormons have a whole nother model, because what they have is they have cloistered communities that have big white fancy temples, and then they have what they call, the multi-marriages, where man can marry several women, and
Polygamists. Yeah.
polygamists. And boy, that fell apart right not too far from where I live up in Canada. And that was the case where, and I forget his name, but they wrote a bunch of books about him. But boy, he got in big trouble, and he moved to Canada after that. He was originally, I think, in Utah, but he took a whole, bunch of women and girls, and was, what I mean, it was evil. And you can't do evil shit in the name of religion. I'm sorry. End of
Right.
story. I mean, let's call
Yeah.
a spade a spade. But that really plays in also to the tribes. And before that before 2020, the investigation I did back to 2016, it really had to do with, and we're going to go back to the Bundy Ranch. And, the involvement of the senator that, again, was alluded to, Harry Reid, and he is now not a senator, but Chuck Schumer. And they're both Jewish. This was the money con behind the entire thing with Bundy Ranch, because what they wanted to do is take over BLM land. So, and if I say these words at this point in time, I just want everybody to write it down and remember it. It's all about the land. You take any political issue, anything about water, anything about ranchers, minerals, whatever, it comes back to who owns the land. And that is the big issue. That's the big ticket that all of these people have tried to align themselves with the very folks that are either the owners by Homestead Act. And that is where they put the full court press against these homesteader farmers throughout the wheat belt of our country. And what they did is they conned them through giving them loans, and the banking crash, and they bought all this fancy equipment, and then it was drought, and then they had to, they foreclosed on their property. I mean, come on, folks, open your eyes about this, because it may be happening in your very neighborhood. And that has to do with the aspect that they created that is even in play right now, where they wanted to move you into 15-minute cities. They wanted you to have nothing and be happy. They wanted you to have no proprietorship of the land. We got a big thing here. They wanted to run a wildlife corridor between Canada and Yellowstone Park. And we're still fighting that off. I mean, that's like, because they were able to get in and just manipulate things enough, then also to con people. I mean, this has been, a lot of us have fallen into it thinking that we're doing a good thing. And there I go down that road. But, we have to have discernment. It's very important we start to kind of look even at our own lives,
It's tough right now, and sometimes you just have to walk away from it. There's we watch different people in the patriot community, and I think some of them think their crowds are different, but there are a lot of people that are watching all these different people talking about stuff, and some of them out there, they're gonna turn around and they're gonna make a whole narrative out of this Charlie Kirk thing being a false flag or a military op, or
yeah. Well, and that is going to be tried. They're going to try a whole lot of stuff. And I can tell you in a very real way, we're going to shut them down. Every time they're going to go over there, we're going to put a big roadblock, because we're beginning to, and this goes back a little ways because it was started with the Q team. We're beginning to understand what it is that they base everything on. And if you look at how they do the same thing over and over again, expecting different outcomes, that's the definition for insanity. So if I'm going to apply that onto certain things, I'm beginning to, because they're having to crush everything into a very small package where they could take, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years to do this cycle of stuff. It now exists within a much shorter period of time.
Yeah.
And I can tell you they came up with a storyline about this, yesterday's occurrence where the shooter was on the top of a roof again, people took pictures and there's a black figure up there, all in black. And then they said that he ran into the forest and he left some firearms out there. So they found him. I mean, this is the most, well, hi there, the most incompetent police force that they have 6 guys on this police force. That's 6, Did they say it 3 times?
And that's the thing. There were pictures out today that said, here's the view from the roof and yada, yada. And I'm thinking, isn't that a crime scene? How are people even getting up on the roof today to take pictures after that happened?
I know. See, this is the other thing about, what we're experiencing right now is that a lot of things are fabricated. And this takes a minute, to kind of discover. I mean, there was this thing about his ring, it was on one finger and then on another finger. Again, it's like saying, yeah, you should see some of the AI stuff. I have quite a few things posted that were done by Free Voice Media, and I mean they're fabulous, and they're all AI, and they have characters in them, and it looks kind of like real life. They make it moody, so that it's really actually not real life, but it is the case where we have to work things through. But this kid or guy that is now called a transsexual, that he's plays both ends, but he ran into the trees, the tree line, and he dropped these weapons, and I'm going, I've heard that before. And that's what they said about the Sandy Hook kid, right?
The news seems to cycle. I've even picked up on this just doing what I do. It's they cycle these Gaza stories, and it's on repeat.
And it is sort of one of those things that's actually a part of the programming. And if we kind of look at this with a little bit of a sly eye, we have to sort of think it through, because I think that some of these things are scripted, and I do think that there's an element involved of sensationalism that plays really well through the media. So they're not only involved, they're complicit. And I know that, having worked in media for many, many years, that, they get their script every morning. They called it the 4 a.m., talking points. And they actually, somebody put that together the other day about this, because we started to, again, hear the talking points where they're all of the media, all those folks started sounding the same, with the same, little clips. And I'm like, I can pick it out at a distance, but then a lot of folks are just, they're kind of like lulled by this sort of thing. And it is something that is used, as Roseanne said today in this new interview, it's trauma-based programming. And Juan talked about it as well recently. And when you get into trauma-based programming, you're going to look at things like commercials, and you're going to look at what is played as far as what we call a header or a tail of a lot of stuff. And we're also going to be affected by this because it hits a part of our brain that is really put into us from birth, and it's our learning process of repetition. When we go to school, the way they teach you your multiplication tables is they kind of sing it, right? 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 4 is 16, 4 9 2
Like
8,
it's like our
So
music.
that's right. And so then it implants itself in a portion of the brain that is where what we do is we keep memories, right? But we also, it's a place and it's in the back of the skull where we can be affected by things that are from external sources. And put this on the table, threw it on the table recently, is that we see a lot of people that have been damaged by technology. And he was talking about a sound wave that has been developed as of a long time ago that is in the military, where it literally can shoot a sound wave at you, completely disable you. And if they do it long enough and hard enough, it will literally fry your brain. They have the ability to do this. And part of it was called the voice of God technology. And that was where they again are sending a signal out with a certain modulation and a certain message, and they can make people into killers. It's like saying that, yeah, it sounds wacky, but it really does exist, guys. And
What did Trump say they hit the cartel boat with the other day? There's some, I can't remember. He said some type of weapon, a pulse weapon or sonic weapon, or I can't remember how he said it, but
yeah, it is kind of it's not sonic, because that is like supersonic. That's above sound. But what it is it's lower frequency modulation. And I know about this because I've been studying the Schumann resonance. And of course, in terms of that, actually flow state is 8 hertz. So you don't hear it. You can't really perceive it, although you can certainly simulate it within, when you start to hear it, you can feel more peaceful. Well, it's the same thing with 13 to 31 hertz, which is beta brain wave state. Now, that's our normal time of thinking, right? But they can pulse that, over a wide area, and you can start to feel really, really weird. It's like you've got voices in your head. And to be honest with you, some of this is actually even a part of our devices, which
all
we
those
have. Yeah.
all those school shooters claim to hear voices too.
A lot of it, yeah. And that, of course, is a point that one is really enjoys talking about, where people are like listening to what he calls spirits or demons, because, and for better or for worse, they're out there. And they can get into people's, not only their minds, but their bodies. And we call that, demon possession, right? And this culture doesn't think twice about watching a MTV or a Lady Gaga performance or whatever and getting into it, and you're totally in the groove and watching all this stuff. And it really is satanic, the
Very
symbolism, you know.
ritualistic, yeah.
Yeah, it is. And it's not really what we should be doing, and
And
I
a lot
have
of
advised
parents
this before, but yeah.
a lot of parents don't always double check that stuff with their kids. They want to go to a concert and they think, oh, you want to go to a Lady Gaga concert? Here you go.
Well, the idea that Katy Perry was, soliciting for teenagers, kind of a role model, and then at one point in her career, really, before, she was a country western singer, right, and really wholesome. And she said, "Yeah, I went to the dark side, so she could get famous and rich, and
Rap
then."
rap's bad, and that's the one that really holds with the kids today.
Yeah, it's been actually part of the culture, gosh, for 30 years now. And again, the
Mhm.
lure is, and it was really kind of based in the ghetto in Los Angeles because that's where I first encountered it, and that goes back to when I spent time down there. Um, and I did notice that it really had a hold on a certain kind of class, particularly of men, where they would sit and they'd jive and they did all the rap stuff, and it became like a contest, who could put words to in a lyrical way, and so okay, there's not anything inherently bad about rap, but it can get kind of edgy as far as then them including like death and dismemberment and raping people, and it goes
Right.
down a dark road really quickly, and that really, folks, we got to start being more virtuous, and I think that's really what they hit on today. I'll get this program up. It's excellent
I
because
think Trump's brought that out in society. In all
yeah.
honesty, I think he's done a great job of
Yep.
putting some moral guidance back.
Hmm. Well, and that is where we have to be thoughtful about it. I mean, most of us are good people. There's far more good people than there are bad people out there, and I just think it's a matter of kind of turning the station dial, right? um, which we're bombarded with this stuff, and where wholesomeness sort of indicates a home and a family, and animals and maybe a garden. That's kind of a wholesome approach, but most people out there today don't have these things. We're all living in poverty, and maybe in a trailer, and or sleeping on couches, or our lives
Yeah.
are not optimal because we have been stolen from our entire life. And this is a discussion, of course, about money that is, all of us on Social Security, I include myself here, but we have been given a bare minimum amount of money, and you can no longer live on this. It's nuts.
No.
And I have, we all sort of listen to Trump and to Elon, with the Doge is going to give us, some money. Well, it sounds like it's actually going to come true, that they're going to try to equal this stuff out. What they're working on right now is ridding the rolls of Social Security from all the scammers, the conners, the, 150-year-old people, the people that
Right.
have three incomes from two of them are dead.
Cleaning
Um,
things out first. Yeah.
that's right. And disability. This is, I mean, I can't even tell you. I have a friend that is vax damaged, and he got a lump on his ankle and ended up having a stroke. Now he's got kidney failure, and he's in there and navigating this whole thing with disability. And I talk to him and I go like, this is insane, the hoops he's having to jump through, and then he's only getting like $400 a month, and he has to go for dialysis 3 days a week. I mean, no, we've got to be really, really aware that we're not going to have less disabled people. We're going to have more disabled people. And
Yeah.
that's where this severe medical crisis is looming. And, it's not going to be about anything we did.
It
It's about
really
what was done
is.
to us. Yeah.
With the drugs clearing up, even it's gonna cause a medical crisis of people
Yeah.
needing rehab and
Oh, yeah.
mental health
Mhm.
treatment. And yeah, I think you're definitely right about that.
Well, that will be again, we've got RFK Jr., who is just brilliantly attacking this. And, he's trying to get the chemicals out of the food. And I've already seen some big changes about that. And that's for the better. But, this whole thing about the vaccine is, it's a tragedy. And I know that some of you are aware of, the situation that was foisted upon us, and probably are experiencing the downside is that to keep your job, or to keep your house, or to keep your, your life, to be able to visit your, dying grandmother across the country. It's like, it's been a horror show, and some of us kind of just did it because we had to now. And I know that the technology then to rid this of your body, out of your body for good, it's just around the corner. And I'm not going to call it beds, because it isn't. It's a frequency machine, really, and it is based on ultrasound. It's going to be able to break up the graphene complex. It'll break up the degradation that this thing did to certain organs, and of course, it also can cure cancer, which is far better than taking, any drug, is to use something that can pinpoint and then zap it, and then it's done. I mean, yes, we have, kind of a picture of this, and some of us that have been working in the frequency field for as long as I have, actually, I have found some things that you can get relatively cheaply that work. But I am always like really aware, if I start kind of talking like this and going like, well, here's the advice. Dr. Mary, who developed an ultrasound protocol that has to do with eliminating the graphene from, different organs and places where it gets settled. It's in your bloodstream if you got the shot and it went directly into your vein in your arm or your capillary. And it is also the case where you can breathe it in. It's more of a shed, but it can fester itself in your bronchial tubes. And Dr. Mary, I had several conversations with her assistant and then with her, and she got taken into jail. She's now sitting in jail. She's been there for about 6 months. That's bad. And
it's so wrong.
It is. And she lived in Arizona, and I'm just going to say it again. Where is it one of the biggest political, bullshit things that have happened in the entire country, with politics? And Kari Lake, who ran against, some pretty easy, sort of marks as far as their abilities and such, but she lost. And she's now working with Trump directly. But, Arizona is a crime scene, and so is Utah. And, I can say there's parts of Idaho that have slipped into that, the southern parts. Certainly along the coast, California, Oregon, Washington State, Seattle.
Feels like every state's about complicit somehow.
Well, there are problems in more of the major cities, and it doesn't have to do whether they're red or blue. They can be either one, and they can still have some big time problems. So our entire political, I guess I want to say the way that it works is broken. So that kind of puts it fairly concisely. So
yeah. Things have gotten pretty quiet about Russia Gate lately. Do you think that's going to come back around? Because Juan always talked about how we'd probably see stuff with that before some of the election stuff came back around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's well, 2016 has already gone into process. You see, those are all the players that are coming in to be interviewed by the Congress. Again, we're talking not even a week away, so they get started, and I do have a schedule for that. That was published a while ago, but I'll bring it out and put it up on probably Telegram. Um, and ask your listeners what is where's their go-to as far as sort of aligning themselves with Juan, number one, but also to get to what they think is the truth. I mean, I just want you guys, there are a lot of people in chat. This is really great today, but just put it up on there and I can take a look at it because I'm doing, kind of the work that is required in terms of being authorized to post in Juan's name. There isn't really other channels out there that are actually authorized. I've got the only ones. There are other channels that have his name, but they're not him, and they're not, posting stuff that is of any value. And in fact, a lot of them are doing great harm, and that kind of bothers me. But I don't really have the numbers, you know, to be important at this, and that's okay. I don't care. But then I would like to know that my stuff was being viewed, and X seems to be a good place, but there's 19.3 I think K followers, and I just think we should have a lot more. We should have more it's a great place to have conversation. I always look at all the comments and I put hearts on it. It's like saying that's a full-time job, but I can't even possibly imagine, and this is unfortunately the way it works on X, is that you have to have 5 million impressions in 3 months. It's like an impression isn't a view, unfortunately. It's sharing it or having the conversation and posting comments, or, again, it's more stuff than just viewing it. So
I targeted YouTube just simply because it's sort of, an app that's built into your smartphones and your smart TVs, and it's sort of become a household go-to as far as channels. And then there's endless channels within the channel, and I thought it was important. Nope, I think I lost. Yeah, we lost her. But it felt important to me to get this kind of content back to YouTube. A lot of patriots were purged off of here, and the content in general was purged off of here, and so it's been a big fight to get all that stuff back. Hey, Stacy, Jamie, good to see you guys. Vance, Clara, Sandy, Regina. Yeah, and if people are around the night, or if we might just play it here, because I wanted to show you some of Juan's conversation today. There she is. There
sorry,
you are.
my phone was getting hot and I picked it up and I went, I better get it on a brick. So it's like, and it's actually, it's plugged in. And this is the problem with devices these days, is they start to lose battery power, even though you've got them like on, hooked up. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I think we're sort of at the end. It's what, an hour and a half. So yeah, it's so I'd like to know more about your process in terms of how you get news. If it's through, again, you talked about it in a way that I'm not familiar with. So I've really simplified my work, and of course how I get news, because Telegram, I think, has got a great place for picking up really breaking news. Of course, I also have contacts in the country that provide it for me on text. So
with Telegram, there's a lot of times I get news on there before it's even broadcast on YouTube by any of the big stations like Fox or MSNBC. So
Yeah, it's true because, again, we've got, and this is our side, guys. This is where we live, right? We don't have to worry about not feeling at home here, but and they do often post on also on X and then on Rumble too, like MJ Truth. He's got a great channel, 100,000 subs.
I love his channel. I
Yeah,
always go there for news.
absolutely. And another one I like is Joe M. Storm is Upon Us.
Yeah.
And Bioclandestine. So,
Yeah.
those are my
Yeah,
go-tos as well.
we're pretty much on the same page there. I check out Captain Kyle a lot, and I go to all those channels news-wise, and then I look at. I always try and take a look at what stories the media is putting out, on your home pages and stuff. What's popping up as far as headlines, and that way I can sort of touch on them there, and I try and show people what both sides are saying if I can. I just try and change it up. Here's what ABC's saying, or here's what MSN's saying.
Yeah, we need to kind of check with the opposition. I think that's also, I don't spend a lot of time with it because I know what they're saying. It's like, okay, they're
Right.
repeating the script, no big deal. But
It's good in that way.
regionally, yeah, it's going to be important. It's like I'll be honest with you, I don't miss PBS at all. They're starting to close all their regional affiliates all over the country, and it's like saying, I kind of like their little home show things and their travel logs and stuff, but
I feel like
I just
I feel like cable television in general's coming to an end, and I feel like these pharma ads will be what finishes it off, and we'll move into a whole streaming system.
Well, we'll talk about that next time I come on, because I've been involved in the entire internet stuff for many years, and I think we talked about it a little last time I was on. So, but what is coming is pretty spectacular, and this is all in the works in the Trump administration. So I don't have to really other than just observing. Another place that's really good to go is called whitehouse.gov, which is the site for the White House.
Yeah.
And then there is the White House, which is on YouTube, and they put some current stuff up. The other two people, Dan Scavino Jr., he's really great. Telegram, and True Social, and certainly True Social for Donald Trump's
I've been
presence.
spending a little bit of time on TikTok here and there too. Just so there are some patriots out there that do good work with the short videos and keeping them informative.
Yeah, and that's a matter of personal choice. I personally, I'm not going to sign up there. I'm not going to view anything, because now they require you to download an app on your phone. And that was end of story, because Juan sent me something the other day from Instagram, and I went, whoa, what is this? So, and I can't even get there to see it. So
I can't use Instagram.
Yeah. And Nino said recently that he's doing Instagram now. So it doesn't make sense. I mean, you do too many things and you're in, there's only 10 work hours a day that I'm willing to work. So, I got to go see my horses and take care of the cats.
A lot of people are getting hacked, and there's a lot of fake accounts out there too that are just totally bogus.
Yeah, it's really true. I mean, that's 90% of your time is wading through. And I've noticed a lot of this happening where There are new channels that do shorts and even longer term things on YouTube that this just it's spam. It's clickbait. And they get you brought in and you watch it. They just want numbers and they don't care about content, and they're creating it all on AI. I mean, this is really something else. So I like this comment. Thank you, Jack and Gypsy. Jack and
Yeah.
Gypsy.
Yeah.
We just got a new name for the show. Jack and
Yeah.
Gypsy.
I think people are enjoying the interview. It's a good interview. I think we kind of needed this tonight. It didn't feel right to get on here and do the same news stories, and it just seemed important to how everybody was feeling about it.
Yeah, and I like appreciate your audience. I'm going to say the same things that Juan did for you, is that, and that's where we really make the biggest splash, is that we start with talking with people all over the country, and you got your own little, sort of state of mind, and your life is a certain way, and we love you. This is the people that we know and we care for, and that we're all going to survive this together. Please don't have a thought about not getting through this, because if you're alive today, you're going to certainly live through these times, whether they get more interesting or not. But on the other side, we're going to have the ability to live for as many years as you care to engage. And that is true. So, our technology is going to get used for good, and we're going to discard all the stuff that's that's been projected. I mean, a lot of people have said, oh, AI is going to take over the world, we're all going to end up chipped, and with expiration codes written on us and shit. Well, that's a part of movies. That's not really what this country is all about, because we pray to God, we have faith, and we know that having hope and love is probably the highlight of what any one person can do in any given day.
Absolutely.
So thanks to you guys for your time, and and with medbeds, we just got to change our thinking a little bit about that, because the medbed, unfortunately, it fits into Dr. Spock and the thing that you scan with, and Star Trek, right? And that's not exactly how it's going to work. And I'm working with people right now that have really they have an ironclad understanding of what can be done, what can't be done, and then how we will be able to benefit from the things that are actually available right now. And I'll just tell you this one last thing. If any of you guys have tooth problems, I just happened to go to a dentist that has a new 3D model dentistry app, which they can do a scan on your tooth. And if you just have one of those old amalgam fillings, they'll drill it out, they'll scan it, and they have a little cap. They call it a wrap in some ways, because it wraps around the tooth. It completely covers it. They glue it on. Bada bing, bada boom. It cost 1/3 of what a contemporary sort of drilling and creating the thing, and doing a root canal, or don't wait, get in, get it done, because these crowns are way too expensive, because they take too much time and they don't always work. And it depends on your age, I think, because they're not as durable as other things. But if you still have your teeth, you should get in and get that done. I had 2 teeth done just 3 weeks ago, and it was like I couldn't believe it that they had the technology to do that. And that's where the technology is going to be incredible, because they'll be able to do things so quickly and so perfectly that they can duplicate bones, that they're going to be able in the future to duplicate organs. They're going to have the technology to fix stuff that you thought you'd have to live with for the rest of your life. And that's where it's really going to help us of the older category to have a longer life, so anyway, that's
It's going to be
the good news.
amazing. It's going to be amazing.
Yep.
Awesome times.
Well, if you look at the way that things are working right now, there is going to be money for doing this stuff. And that's because the healthcare system is going to be completely re-engineered. And I'll tell you who's going to suffer more than anyone else is insurance.
Oh, yeah.
Because that insurance reform, it's already on the table. I just talked to my guys down there that do my auto insurance, and they're like, oh yeah, it's coming, because it isn't the case anymore that there's big money involved in this. And most of that is, because the big wigs are paying so much out to fix, places that have been flooded and the fires and the do weaponry, it's going to shift, it's going to change. And that has to be, to the benefit of all of us in order to fix ourselves so that we can live a good quality of life, because that's what really we all deserve. We deserve this. So don't think of it any other way.
Definitely.
That's what will bring the abundance. Okay. So we'll see you guys. It's been fun, and I appreciate everything that you have, have contributed, and it's a good day. So, be positive.
Definitely. Thank you for coming on. Everybody's really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed it, and yeah, I hope hope you come back soon.
Well, we'll try to. I'll have more time. I just have to say that it's as we get into winter, it kind of sticks me closer to home, but that's okay. We're all in this together, and I just really enjoy the process of talking to you, Jack. Your guys are good, and you're a good man. We have to be sure that we're with the right folks, and we resonate to each other. We have a good vibe here, so that's worth working on. And maybe I'll even get some other people that I know that could contribute for different states. If you guys could do just put up on the chat, what state you're from, and we'll try to get some specific information. I mostly function, as you can tell, from the Western states. So, but you're from the Midwest, right? Chicago,
Right.
and you met some people like Jerry Foley and his group, and hey, let's get one of those guys on too. And be sure to know Mark Cook's a good guy, but he's got he's kind of got an ego, so massage the ego, but also ask him about Hawaii. I think that's a big question, and certainly he's going to tell you about his ability technically, because that's what he does. He crunches numbers. So it might be kind of eye crossing to some folks, but let people ask questions to him, because he's kind of unique, and he's been around enough sort of the voter integrity stuff. And I don't know if he really is going to be able to talk about Utah, but that's kind of a separate group at this point. But there is, some really interesting local stuff that I'm trying to kind of set you up for that, in that, these are processes, the fraud that's happening, the way they've done it, the fact we're going to have another census here pretty soon. They're working on this really as fast as they can. I sort of doubt they're going to be able to do it before the election, but they are going to try to clear the voter rolls of all the illegals, and that's going to put us in a way different position, as far as electing.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Well, we're going to try to keep our head up, and And again, it's, this thing with the woman that got killed on the bus the other day. One of the things Juan said, and I don't know if you talked about it or not, but he said she didn't have a clue as to what was happening because she was staring at her phone until the knife actually entered her neck. And nobody should be subjected to something like that. And I said it on MJ Truth because I feel this really strongly. We need to teach people how to navigate within their area so that they're aware of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of examples out there of people. Look at Butler, where Trump got, almost shot the back of his head off. By the grace of God, he wasn't killed, but there were people down on the grounds going like, "Did you look up there? There's somebody up there,"
I always remember a story of a kid walking with headphones on and a plane crashed on top of his head. I remember hearing that a long time back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we need to work with, the whole device thing. I mean, I don't know how to, how to work it out on an individual basis, but certainly it's up to the people involved, and we've got to start talking about it, just have the conversation, just like Charlie Kirk was, give him homage, say, I'm going to talk to you about something that Charlie Kirk talked about. Well, who's Charlie Kirk? It's an opportunity to enter in terms of a shared event that then, oh, did that happen? Oh, yeah, right. I remember seeing that. Learn to be a good conversationalist,
Right.
I think it is really up to all of us to find that place where we can, feel comfortable, enter the playing field and get comfortable, we have those abilities, each one of us does. So anyway, so like we're going on 2 hours. I got to get going. So we can certainly talk for a long time. Okay. So
All
take care,
right.
everyone. Love you.
Love you. Thank you again. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jack. And thanks everybody in the chat. Bye
God
now.
bless you.
God bless. Thank you. God bless.
God bless you. All righty, Patriots. How's everybody doing here? You guys doing good in the chat? Yeah, my dog came to visit. It was a great conversation, wasn't it? We went over quite a few things there, and it's good to see all of you here tonight. I'm really glad we did this. I really didn't have the heart to do another news show where I went through these same stories that are cycling through on Israel and Charlie and everything else. And so I just felt like it was a better way to go through the night and talk about everything happening today. Where can you follow her? You can find her on X, and she's doing one of seven presentations on Rumble. I don't think she's got anything out right now where she's out talking or doing anything, but I'll definitely double check all that for you guys. But you definitely find her on social media, not to put those links up in the description here in a little bit. So that should help too. It's hard to tell what to think about the Charlie Kirk story, right? X account. Let me take a look, see if I can bring it up. Because there's a Juan X account, and I think she's got her own too. I don't do X too much these days. I like X. I just haven't been doing much on here. Mm. Okay. The 107 one, I know it's 107 and then 107, the number. So there's that one. Post that in the chat. Beyond that, I will have to look. It's interesting. You could almost say, that maybe they would fake something like that as a way to get into the election stuff. There you go. Um, if I was taking my personal guess, it could go both ways, but I also think it's a situation of timing, and that one way or another right now, we sort of have to play the cards as they lie. You know what I mean? It may be that something like this was set up for a specific reason, but we lose the reason in the reasoning process, basically. Why, I think, would be again about getting into the state of Utah to go into the 2020 election stuff, or to get the right officials on investigation mode in the right places. Yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that time will tell, and we got to follow it and follow along and be good patriots in the process. And like she said, rather than sit around slow motioning cuts of him actually getting shot and dying and debating this and that, what's the point? Why not celebrate the message and let things play out how they're going to play out? Because you can drive yourself nuts with it. You really can. And especially when you're in the beginning of all this stuff. Even when I started on here a year and a half ago or so, I was driving myself nuts with the Trump assassination attempt. And it doesn't really matter. You can debate about it all day and let it drive you crazy, and you skim right over the point of it. So time will tell, guys and gals. I know you feel like that leaves you in a position where you don't know what to do. Do you feel bad for Charlie and shed tears and say prayers? I think it's always proper to say prayers. I think that's exactly what you do. You might want to play it cool and say, well, I think this happened, but play it as it lies, you know. Tina Peters stuff. I'd like to direct you guys to where you can all watch the episode today with Juan and Trennis Evans and everybody. Let's see if I can direct you guys to that. I know it's on Telegram as it is, but in Rumble. Let's see who put it up. See if I can post it here. See what the Rumble channel is. The Rumble channel is called The Truth Matters. Let's see if I can highlight that. Put this in the chat. Okay. Can I play it? Let me look. I actually might be able to. I don't know how long it is. Let's take a look.
Anniversary of the Benghazi attack. And just before I start, I want to read one post from Tig Tigan from his ex. He says, September 11th, today, remember, 24 years ago, our nation was struck in New York at the Pentagon and in a quiet field in Pennsylvania. Thousands of lives lost in a single morning.
I don't think we'll
swore never to
watch
forget.
it all here because I don't know all these controls and things, but I just wanted to give you an idea. Roseanne's on there, Trennis Evans, Juan, and they do a great interview. You guys should check it out on Rumble. Again, that channel is called The Truth Matters. We can take a look at the clips here.
Is the time that they slip in the message and why they traumatize us. So they slip in the message because in trauma, the brain is open to being programmed. So we really have to be careful because we are in trauma and it is nonstop. Somebody getting shot, innocent children, people being stabbed on subways. And we have to really be mindful of what is the message that the media is shoving down our throat in the meantime. And it is through repetition and it is during trauma. So everybody needs to be really connected to God and to each other at times like this. And it is September 11th, which was, I mean, it was the beginning of terror on our shores. We hadn't seen anything like it before. And we still wonder why, and we still have no answers. So it's like an open-ended trauma, that one alone. And then what they did yesterday, I think, was kind of to drive it home. And but in all the darkness, we get Tina's birthday. So we kind of get Tina's birthday party in the middle of all this darkness, the birth of a great patriot, of a great woman, a great American, and we have to rally for her. We have to be here for her. We have to see her through because she is the heart of America in so many ways, a gold star mother behind bars for doing her job and for exposing darkness. And I think that Tina replacing the trauma on September 11th, Tina and her birthday is a great replacement for.
Okay, it's getting a little jumpy here. So that should give you a little idea on that. Happy birthday to Tina Peters. Happy birthday to Jesus Christ. Remember Benghazi. Remember 9/11. Remember Charlie Kirk. It's quite a group of things to remember. Anyway, this was a great interview we had today, and this is a great interview right here with Juan and Roseanne and Trennis, and I highly recommend you check it out. It's also on Juan O'Sullivan Presentations on Rumble. I forgot she put it up, so you can find it there as well. I hope you guys have had fun tonight. I like to change things up. It's nice getting to do some interviews. Since I'm on StreamYard, though, I won't put too much time on it by watching Roseanne and Juan or anything. But you guys, highly recommend you check out the interview. Possibly tomorrow, if there's nothing new, we can look at it or something. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, but very good interview. And I don't think Juan did anything else tonight. Check real quick. Yeah, I think that was it. We looked at Nino last night and PPN, so yeah. That may not be up. It doesn't look like that is up yet on 107 presentation, so might have to go to the Truth Matters. I don't know if Roseanne posted it on her channel, but that's the Rumble channel. I'll put it up one more time in the chat. Actually, I think I can put it up right here for everyone to see. There you go. The Truth Matters. That is the Rumble channel. Go there on Rumble, and you will find the episode with Juan and Roseanne. And they talk about 9/11 and Tina Peters and Charlie Kirk and quite a few things. So I seen something about Tom McDonald. Didn't he put a song out that's like #1 right now? Is it rap or country? Country rap? I don't know what it is. I can't remember what it's called either. It's hilarious. Anyway, it's been a good show, guys. I've had fun. I hope you had fun. I hope you had a good night. We will be on again tomorrow night, and we will do all that. Absolutely, Vance. I don't think they have caught the suspect. I haven't seen anything about it. Charlie Kirk's body arrives in Arizona from, what does this mean? From cookie crusade to conservative politics, Charlie Kirk inspired and enraged millions. Charlie Kirk wanted cheaper cookies. The cafeteria at Wheeling High School in the Chicago suburb of Wheeling, Illinois, had doubled the price of cookies from a quarter to 50 cents, citing the higher cost of ingredients. But Kirk, a senior, wasn't having it. He created a Facebook page called Attention to Cookie Inflation. Interesting. Cookies, huh? Weird. But no, I don't think they've caught anybody, Gingeroo, that I've seen. So we will look at it all again tomorrow, Patriots. I love you guys. God bless you. Please have a good night. And we'll do it all again tomorrow. Sound good? See you later, guys. Stay out of trouble.